You're basically useless without me, right? That's what she said, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear. Her friends froze for a second, then burst out laughing, like it was the funniest punchline they'd ever heard. Even the waiter cracked a smile as he set down another round of drink. And me, I sat there, my face burning, forcing a crooked smile to keep the peace, while inside it felt like someone had just ripped open my chest. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that it was just a slip, just another one of her so-called jokes. But it wasn't the first time, and from the way her eyes sparkled, from the smug little smirk curling on her lips, I knew it wasn't accidental. It was intentional. It was meant to cut. I looked around that table, people I barely knew, people I wanted to respect me, and instead of seeing me as a partner, they saw me as the punchline. Her punchline. She leaned back in her chair, soaking up the laughter, acting like she'd just delivered a masterclass in comedy. Meanwhile, my dignity was bleeding out right there in front of them. And yet, I stayed quiet. I swallowed the humiliation, the ache in my throat, the weight in my chest. Because at that moment, I still loved her. I still thought she loved me. Everyone laughed like it was harmless. But that night, something inside me broke, and she had no idea what was coming. I didn't meet her in some grand, cinematic way. It was at a mutual friend's birthday party. Loud music, crowded room, the kind of night you expect to fade from memory by the next morning. But not her. She stood out, confident, radiant, with this energy that pulled everyone toward her. I remember thinking, this girl is magnetic. And when she laughed at something I said, I felt like the luckiest guy in the room. In the beginning, she made me feel like I mattered. She bragged to her friends that I was dependable, hardworking, the kind of man who would never let her down. And she was right, I didn't. I worked extra hours, skipped nights out with friends, just to make sure I could help her with rent when she was short. I paid for her courses when she decided she wanted to chase a new career path. I believed in her even more than she believed in herself sometimes. But looking back, the red flags were always there, waving right in my face. She had this way of turning me into a joke. Little comments slipped in front of her friends. Don't ask him for directions. He still uses Google Maps for everything. Or, oh, don't worry, he's too boring to do anything wild. Everyone laughed, including me, at least on the outside. I told myself it was harmless, that it was just her sense of humor. Still, it stung. Every jab chipped away at something I couldn't quite name yet. And when I finally tried to bring it up, she rolled her eyes and told me I was too sensitive. Come on, lighten up, she'd say. And because I loved her, because I didn't want to lose her, I swallowed my pride and convinced myself she didn't mean it. Looking back now, I should have seen it then, but the real betrayal was only just beginning. It didn't stop after that night at the restaurant. If anything, it got worse. Her jokes became a routine, a script she'd pull out anytime she wanted to get a laugh at my expense. And it wasn't just around her friends anymore. It bled into every part of my life. I remember the first time she did it in front of my family. We were at a dinner I'd organized, something simple but meaningful. I'd worked overtime all week to pay for it, thinking it would be nice to have everyone together. Plates of food, glasses of wine, laughter filling the air. And then, out of nowhere, she leaned over to my mom and said, "He's so cheap, isn't he? Always acting like he's saving for some big plan, but really he's just afraid to spend a dime." The room went quiet. My mother tried to laugh it off, but I saw the flicker of confusion in her eyes. I sat there, heart pounding, gripping my fork like it could hold me together. I wanted to defend myself, but doing so would have only made me look worse. So I smiled again. Smiled while my stomach knotted itself into something ugly. And then there was the party. She was leaning against the bar, laughing a little too hard at another guy's jokes. When I walked up, she didn't even flinch. Instead, she rested her hand on his arm and said, "Careful, don't let my boyfriend see. He's the jealous type." They laughed together while I stood there, invisible. Later, when I asked her why she did that, she shrugged. "Relax, it was just a joke. Don't be so insecure." That became her shield. Anytime I confronted her, it was the same line, "You're too sensitive. You can't take a joke." Like I was the broken one for feeling the sting of her word. She twisted reality until I started doubting myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was normal. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I knew no man should feel this small in the arms of someone he loved. And then came the late-night texts. Her phone would buzz after midnight, lighting up the room. She tilted away, smirking at the screen. "Work stuff," she'd say, before turning it face down on the nightstand. When I pressed, she'd snap back, "Why don't you trust me? You're paranoid." The way she said it, sharp and dismissive, made me feel like a child caught snooping where I didn't belong. Still, I stayed. I stayed because I loved the version of her I thought was real, the one from the beginning, the one who made me believe I mattered. But that version was fading, replaced by someone cruel, someone who thrived on watching me squirm. And every day, it got harder to hide how much it was breaking me. At work, I'd sit at my desk replaying her words. At night, I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering how much more I could take. My patience was wearing thin, like a rope fraying thread by thread, and I think a part of me already knew it was only a matter of time before it snapped. I thought I could handle it, until one night, she crossed a line that even I couldn't forgive. It happened on a night that was supposed to be hers. A promotion party, thrown by her boss at a fancy rooftop restaurant, the kind of place where the waiters glide instead of walk and the wine costs more than I made in a day. She'd asked me to come because, in her words, "You'll make me look grounded." I told myself this time would be different. Maybe she'd be proud to have me there. Maybe, for once, she wouldn't make me the punchline. But people don't change overnight. The night began smoothly enough. She introduced me around, clinging to my arm, laughing too loudly at all the right moments. For a brief second, I thought maybe she saw me as her partner again. I let myself believe it until dinner. We were seated at a long table, candles flickering, champagne glasses clinking. Her boss complimented her work ethic, saying she had a bright future. Everyone applauded, and then she turned the spotlight on me. "You know what's funny?" she said, her eyes sparkling. "He works twice as many hours as me, but somehow he still makes half. Isn't that adorable?" The table erupted in laughter. Not nervous laughter, real laughter. The kind that digs under your skin. My face burned as her words echoed in my head. Half adorable, like my hard work, my sacrifices, were nothing more than a punchline to make her look better. I tried to swallow it, to tell myself it wasn't worth ruining the night. But then she kept going. "Honestly, if it wasn't for me, he'd probably still be living in his tiny apartment, eating ramen every night. I'm basically his upgrade package." The laughter grew louder, sharper, every chuckle another blade sliding between my ribs. I felt the air around me grow heavier, pressing down until it was hard to breathe. And she was radiant, glowing in their approval, basking in my humiliation like it was fuel. I didn't shout. I didn't flip the table or make a scene. Instead, I felt something colder settle inside me. Like a switch had flipped. The rope I'd been clinging to all this time finally snapped, and in that silence, I understood something. I wasn't her partner. I was her prop, a character in her comedy routine, a backdrop to her spotlight. I set down my fork carefully, like every movement mattered. I pushed my chair back, the scrape of wood against tile cutting through their laughter. She glanced at me, surprised, almost annoyed. "Where are you going?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension, as if I was a child leaving the table too soon. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see the woman I fell in love with. I saw someone who thrived on diminishing me, someone who had mistaken my loyalty for weakness. "I'm going home," I said simply. No anger, no explanation, just truth. The table went quiet, the laughter snuffed out like a candle in the wind. Her boss cleared his throat awkwardly, shifting in his seat. She forced a laugh, trying to smooth it over. "See, he's sensitive, always taking things too seriously." But I was already walking away. Out of the restaurant, down the elevator, into the night air that suddenly felt cleaner, lighter. My phone buzzed in my pocket, her name flashing across the screen, but I didn't answer. For once, I didn't feel the need to defend myself or beg to be understood. I just felt free. And as I walked to my car, a calm certainty washed over me. I had been giving love to someone who only gave me humiliation, and I was done. She thought I'd crawl back like always, but this time, I was already gone. The first night I didn't come home, she called me 12 times. By the morning, my voicemail was full of frantic messages, her voice swinging from sobs to rage in the span of minutes. "Please just come back. We can talk about this." Then, a few hours later, "You're being ridiculous. It was just a joke. Stop acting like a child." I didn't answer. For the first time in years, I felt no obligation to explain myself, and that silence drove her insane. Mutual friends started reaching out. One texted me, "Man, she's freaking out. Says you stormed off over nothing." But then, almost like a confession, he added, "Honestly, we always thought she was cruel to you." Nobody wanted to say anything, but, yeah, she crossed the line. It was like a curtain being pulled back. One by one, people admitted what they'd seen all along. My sister told me, "I hated how she talked to you. Every time we were around her, it felt like she was chipping away at you." Even my dad, a man of few words, said, "I'm glad you finally woke up." Hearing that, I realized something important. The world hadn't been blind. I had been. Meanwhile, her campaign to reel me back only grew more desperate. She posted pictures of us online with captions like, "No one will ever love you like I do." She sent long messages about how I'd ruined her reputation by walking out. She spun herself as the victim, claiming I abandoned her over harmless teasing. But the more she spoke, the clearer the truth became. Because when the story started to spread, when friends told friends, and whispers turned into opinions, it wasn't her who earned sympathy. It was me. I imagined what Reddit would have said if I'd shared the story there. Good for him. She was abusive, not funny. Calling constant humiliation a joke is just gaslighting. She thought she was clever, but she just lost someone who actually cared about her. And those imaginary voices felt louder than her frantic calls ever could. For once, I wasn't the joke. I was the man who finally stood up, who walked away, who refused to be her prop anymore. The validation didn't come from her. It came from everyone else who saw what I had lived through and said, enough. But the best part? Walking away wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I never expected. The days after I left were strange at first, quiet, heavy, filled with a kind of silence I hadn't known in years. But slowly, that silence stopped feeling empty. It started to feel like space. Space to breathe, to think, to just exist without waiting for the next insult wrapped in laughter. I threw myself into rebuilding. I started hitting the gym again, not to impress anyone, but to feel strong in my own skin. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, playing guitar, cooking meals that actually made me proud. I spent time with family, with friends who had watched me shrink under her shadow, and for the first time, I wasn't ashamed to look them in the eye. It was during one of those quiet nights, sitting alone on my porch, that the realization hit me. What she called jokes were daggers, and I let them cut me too long. Every laugh at my expense, every brush of "you're too sensitive," had been another slice, and I had been bleeding out without even realizing it. But not anymore. I finally understood something that should be simple but isn't. Loyalty means nothing if there's no respect. You can give your heart, your time, your sacrifices, but if the person holding them only uses them as punchlines, then what you have isn't love. It's a performance. Walking away didn't just save me, it gave me back to myself. And now I know the value of self-worth, the importance of boundaries, and the truth that love without respect is nothing but slow destruction. She thought it was just a joke, but the punchline was that I finally found my freedom.